everyone. I wanted to pop in and share a layout I did today with no patterned paper. And I didn't actually intend to start out doing it this way, but I was inspired by this sketch. Now I like to do different sketch challenges or different crafty challenges. And this one was the Die Cuts with a View challenge for, I believe it was September. And so I was looking at this sketch, and now everything is blank on this sketch, and their intention is for you to fill in with whatever pattern papers you want. But I thought, why not be inspired by the blankness of the sketch and just go with a white sheet of cardstock, and instead of using pattern papers, fill in the sketch with die cut products. And part of the reason I was inspired by that was because I recently purchased this die cut pack right here. This is called the Die Cut Shape Stack by Die Cuts with a View, and I picked this up at Joann's, and it was in the clearancey rack. So when I first saw it, I thought, okay, this is a clearance product, and now that I know for sure it is a clearance product, and I'll actually have a link for you below at scrapbook.com. They have a couple of these stacks left if you're interested. You can pop over there. They just have a few left. They're on sale, and then right now, as of today's posting, they have an extra discount on clearance items. And here, if you don't use stacks very often, here's how I like to open them up. I like to use a craft knife and just slice open that tape that's holding the edges, and then when you lift up the front, you can just fold the tape under, and that eliminates any sticky tape getting around. So here's a quick look at what is inside of this stack, and I found that these items don't necessarily go with each other, but instead are intended to match with other collections by Die Cuts with a View. So this makes it a perfect opportunity to just pick and choose pieces out of here and use it with my own layout with a white cardstock background. So I picked up some photos of my kids playing in the snow, and I thought these photos would work really well with the sketch. And so I chose those, and I printed them with white borders so that I would have some options about how I wanted to use my photos, because I don't have any pattern paper to use as mats. I could use elements to mat them, or I could keep the white border on the photo to mat them. So here I am going through the stack, and I am looking for elements that will fit in with that the sketch. And there I was talking about the long central piece. I don't have a cardstock strip to do that, but I could use words to do that. I could use, there's a couple of border strips in this pack to do that. And I'm just going through the pages trying to find elements that I think will work with my snow theme of my layout, kind of the color scheme of the layout. And I look through and I pick and choose a few different items. And once I got all my items picked out, I did find a little bit of a challenge with some of these smaller, more delicate pieces. So how I approached this was I just cut it out of the sheet, and that gave me more room to kind of wiggle the carrier page around to help dislodge it from the paper. And once I did that, it actually popped out a lot easier. And so I just spent my time popping that out. And then when I got to the insides of some of these letters, again, I was finding they were sticking a little bit, so just using a sharp pair of tweezers, I was able to pop them out. And then one tip that I found is they were still sticking. Once I popped them through, I could grab the little nubbin with the tweezers and then just kind of pull on it and pop it out. All right, I got my photos trimmed down, and for the large photo, there's no mat on it, and for the smaller photos, I did leave a little bit of white border. I did choose a long strip to be that central piece in the sketch, and I did put the sketch up there on the left so you can see it now. And I chose these other elements here to give me some products to play with, and I'm not quite sure on every piece yet what I'm going to do with it, but I like these little word pieces that say best day ever and stuff like that, and that seemed to fit pretty well with the fun that we had playing in the snow. So let me get to how I'm going to arrange all of these elements to fit this sketch. And I'll get to that here in just a minute, but the biggest thing I did with this sketch is you notice that there's a big 6x6 block of element on this page, and instead of using that as one big block, I chose my 3 photos plus that circle element to take up the space of that big 6x6 block. So remember, if your sketch has some larger elements to them, go ahead and think about how you could rearrange those into different elements or smaller elements and mix and match it up. So I've got this card here that says today, and it has some gold foiling on it, and I really like that card, and I'm playing around with it, and I'm just not able to find a spot where it really makes sense. So you'll see in the end that I eventually leave that card off. And then, so I'm going to go with these words along my center strip to give me that border in the sketch, and I'm just going with the words today and favorite. And while it doesn't make a title in and of itself, I think it reads just fine in terms of the meaning of the page. And then I have this heart element that I'm trying to decide what to do, and I'm going to move that around on the page a little bit here and there to see if I can fit it in. And I do try that heart in various places and various orientations, and I think it makes the top of the page too heavy and too busy and leaves the bottom of the page just a little too empty and plain. So I end up moving it down to the bottom, and I do try it on top of the border strip, but again, I think it takes too much focus. And so when I tuck it under the strip, it kind of fades into the background and gives a little bit of texture and interest to the bottom of the page without taking over the bottom of the page. And so I've got everything ready to go. I've chosen to pop up some of these elements with pop dots so that it adds more dimension, especially since I'm not using any pattern paper. You want to get, the richness of the texture in there. And these little banners I chose because the original sketch had two little banners on the right hand side. I just moved those up to the top left corner, and that worked out quite well. And here I've got everything glued down so nothing will fall off my page again, and I dismissed that card that I told you I would earlier. So I've got these three word strips to go with my photos, and I think they make a great little embellishment to the photos. And I decide, after moving them around a little bit, to set them up in this triangle pattern so that it keeps the eye within the photos and helps the eye bounce around inside of this triangle pattern. And it adds some nice color pops here and there. And so that is it for the page. You don't need a lot going on when you're not using pattern paper. Just a few interesting photos. Oh, I did finish it off there with a date stamp. So just a few interesting photos and a couple pops of color and a good design, and you've got yourself a great layout. And I'll leave you today with some still shots of this page. Enjoy. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and get notifications for my future videos.